open the meeting now. Don't forget there's wine, cheese, and a few other goodies back there. Please help yourself. If you would stand for the pledge, please. Gentlemen, please take off your hats. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. This presentation is for information only. There's going to be no decisions made here. Our objective in this particular meeting is to get your input, your suggestions, and your questions. Now, we may not know the answer to all the questions, but we'll be taking notes. The information was gathered mostly by Jim Hall, who's the chair of the Common Area Committee. And we did have a meeting with the Security Operations Manager for the Dominion to ensure we were going on the right track. Jim's going to be talking about gates and fences with a Q&A after each section. We may not know the answer to those questions either. So when you do come up and when you ask a question, please come up to the podium here and answer the question with the microphone. Please state your name. Linda is also going to be mentioning that, and Jim will be mentioning that. Please don't shout out the questions because we want everybody to hear everything. Now there's two speakers. Jim Hall, as I introduced, as the Common Area Committee chairperson, and Linda Caldwell, who's on the Finance Committee and the Survey Task Force. Now she's going to speak first on how this Survey Task Force relates to this presentation, what will follow, and the approximate timeline. So that'll give you some idea of when and what will occur after this presentation. So without any further ado, Linda?
Good evening to everyone. As a member of the Finance Committee, I think it's important that I start with capital improvement funds, so you'll understand any new amenities that are added to the resort would have to come through that capital fund. So this year, we started the capital fund program, and each lot owner contributed $5 per quarter for that assessment. So at the end of this year, we hope to have, or we should have, $36,300. Not a lot to do capital improvements with. So last week, how many of you attended the Finance 102 meeting? Okay, about half the room. So you heard that the Finance Committee is making a recommendation to increase the capital fund to $30 per quarter per lot to the board. If approved at the end of 2024, there would be approximately $190,400 in that capital fund's improvement. So you can see that the money starts to add up. And that's important when we start talking about the things that we're going to discuss tonight, because once again, I'm going to reiterate that this community forum is for informational and feedback purposes only. So what are we going to do with your feedback? Well, in August, the board assembled the Community Task Force, the Survey Task Force. And this task force has been tasked with developing a survey based on the needs expressed to the board through various committee meetings and other means, that it's an effort for them to develop a 2 to 5 year strategic plan. So we need that input to develop and prioritize amenities, because everybody has an opinion about what they would like to see done here. So this survey that's going to take place in first quarter of 2024 will give every resident here at HCR an opportunity to provide their input. So I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of where we are on the capital funds, where we hope to be next year if the board approves the Finance Committee's recommendation, and how this survey will take place.
I'm Jim Hall. I'm the chair of the Common Area Committee. I've lived in Hill Country Retreat since December 2019. I was on the Buildings and Grounds Committee and now chair of the Common Area Committee. So about 3.5 years in the organization. Please we're videotaping. Turn your cell phones off. I had to turn my alarm off, so just make sure. So, community access forum. Those are three very important words. We're talking about access. That means who gets in, essentially. Who gets in? That's all we're talking about. If you don't know, our governing documents specifically prohibit the association from providing security. So it's not about security. We're not responsible for security. We're responsible for controlling who comes in and goes out. So how many of you have moved in here after July of 2022? Okay. So the rest of you are going to hear something you've heard a little bit before, but if you're new, this is to bring you up to speed with what's been done in the past. So I got to do a juggle here because of the way we operate. So these are some concerns that I see on Facebook and Sound Off that probably over the last couple of years. Is there anything else that I haven't captured there that you are concerned about who comes into the community? I'll read them through. Drive-thrus, that's people following you through the gate. Mailbox break-ins, we had some of that. Vehicles broken into. Stolen items and vehicle damage. About 2 years ago, they ran into the gates. $30,000 out of our pocket. We had a report of pedestrians walking in the community at 4 a.m. I mean, not residents, at least as far as we can tell. And I haven't heard of much lately, but there's always concern about non-residents coming in and using trails during daylight hours. So is there anything else that anybody's got a concern about? Yes, Tim?
Just solicitations, you know.
All right, solicitations.
Don't stand in front of the speaker, Jim.
Oh, okay.
Concern?
All right.
It is for our ears.
So solicitations, we need to add that. Anything else? Yes.
The open house garage sales.
Garage sales?
Open house.
The open houses? I mean, by their very nature, they're open gates. So,
Well,
so
yeah, non-residents
Right.
coming into the property.
we're going to have an art event in October. We're going to have the gates open. So that's just a factor.
I haven't seen them this fall, but early spring, there were two guys that came in and I forget what they're called, but they're like a skateboard, only they're motorized. They were
Okay.
coming through almost every day.
Okay.
They were too young to be here.
Repeat the question, Jim.
So this was a resident that saw some folks, too young to be residents, on skateboards, using this as a transit. So you can get through a pedestrian here with a skateboard.
I'm concerned that if you leave the gate open for any length of time, the rock trucks and the school buses are gonna tear up the road,
Okay?
which we gotta pay for.
Okay? So traffic. Hopefully when Pulte's gone, the rock trucks will disappear, except for whatever people will buy. Yes?
And any property burglaries that are not listed there?
I'm not aware of property burglaries. I mean, we've had some cars broken into, but I don't know. I saw one recently that somebody's window was vandalized. So it's not a lot. It's not pervasive. I don't think so. Anything else? Okay. We just want to make sure that we understand kind of what the environment is. So previous to, this has been studied before. You know, you can always study and study and study and study. In 2018, we didn't have Buildings and Grounds or Common Area Committee. We had a subcommittee under finance that was called the Common Area Team.
It's under advisory.
Under advisory, thank you. And their job was to work with the developer when we took over common areas. That's my job now. When we looked at it in 2018, the solution was too expensive and really is not effective as long as we got construction traffic in and out the back. So anything we do really has to wait until then. But that's next year. You know, sometime in the first quarter, certainly by summer, all that construction traffic, at least for new homes, is going to disappear. 2021, the Buildings and Grounds Committee, we focused on damages because we had gates hit. I mean, enough that we had to refabricate gates. We couldn't salvage them. Fortunately, in both instances, we were able to identify who hit it. And we did get some of our money back, but you don't get everything back. They came up with some recommendations mostly about documenting damage so we could place liability. But that was kind of suspended to when the board of directors convened the gate task force in April 2022, somewhere in that time frame. And what I'm going to present is what they recommended because it's the best, most recent available information. So you call them gates, I call them controlled access points. How's that for engineers? So we have gates at my little point here. We have the main gate. Everybody knows that. We have a gate over here at Wooden Trestle. We have a gate at La Valita. Those are all operable gates, in and out. We have a gate right there at Lotus Ridge. You can just go out. So there's no access control on that one. They're not operable, but we do have gates down here. Because we have roads that lead into the adjacent neighborhoods. Those all have emergency gates that the fire department can access for transit if they need to. But they're not operable, and we're not talking about those at this time. There's at least one, there's 2 pedestrian gates at every location we just talked about, and then there's 1 pedestrian gate up at the Persimmon Trail up here. Oh, that's right there. So those are the gates we're talking about, access controls. I'll ask that question later. Excuse me. Okay, these are some facts I looked at. I looked at the Gate Task Force report, and at this time, about 15 months ago, they were estimating that they operates 3,240 times a day. That's a 12-hour day. It's an estimate. It's not a traffic count. It could be more. It probably is more than it now. But they estimated that the Del Webb Gate was passing 2 cars a minute, that the La Valita Gate was passing 1.5 cars a minute, and the Wooden Trestle Gate was passing 1 car a minute. That's how they got the numbers. Purely an estimate, not a traffic count. So if you escalate those, that means from 1,800 a year ago to 1,900, you're talking about 3,400 times a day some gate is opening, at least. Most of our gate strikes have been at night or DUI. So, and it cost us $32,000 to replace that gate. And it was about 3 or 4 weeks, a month, and we didn't have any gate. So when you look at the space between the gate and the highway, the traffic way, you got about enough room at Wooden Trestle for 3 or maybe 4 cars. That's all you got. La Valita's about the same before you're starting to back up into traffic. We got a lot of space on Del Webb. So the engineer and me said we need to do a traffic study, but we can get by without that probably. So what the Gate Task Force did, they made some recommendations. Some of those were implemented and some weren't. So they put signs and reflective tape on the gates. So red and white stripes you see, the stop signs, all of that was put on a year ago. So that's all new. They put lights on the warning signs. So if you come in Del Webb, the gate ahead sign has a solar light on it. So we're trying to highlight those, give warning. We got back to quarterly changing vendor codes. We just got it today, I think. New vendor code. Before that, that had kind of fallen out of practice. And now we're doing that again. You may not know it, but if you come from HEB and you come to Del Webb, if you look up that sign says Rough Road one way, Del Webb the other, it says it's a private road. So the county put that up for us. And we put locks on the electric panels. It may not seem relevant, except our electric panel is outside the gate. And these gates, when they lose power, they fail open. So all you had to do is go over and flip the breaker and you can open the gates. So we've locked the panels. All of that means nobody's run into our gates in the last year. At least hard enough to have to repair. Because some of those reflective strips are a little banged up. And I have a truck with white mirrors, so I want to go through it. So they also implemented some street markings, recommended some street markings. So we can mark the streets. We're gonna seal coat Del Webb next year, so we can start marking there. Markings are easy to change, but it depends on what we decide. So what markings we put is going to depend on our solution. They recommended an incident log. I don't know if that's been implemented. Just keep track of who's doing what, how many times it's reported, ins and outs. That wasn't done that I know. Believe it or not, there are 4-digit numbers. There's about 150 codes that anybody can guess. 2222. 1949. It's a popular one. So there's about 150 codes that are still in the system. Some of you may have one of those. Between like 1900 and 2000. So some of those are still in the system, and we could eliminate some of those by blocking the system. And finally, the big one was surveillance cameras. That was the recommendation. This is information. We're not pushing surveillance cameras. We're just telling you what's been done in the past. So their further recommendation was after the gates close. And if we're going to do something after the gates close, now's the time to figure out what it is. So they looked at a lot of stuff. And they settled on a solution that would give you an RFID tag instead of your clicker. And the idea would be that one of these one-armed bandits was there, the gates would be open, and the one arm, you come up and your RFID tag is red, it goes up, and it's down in 3 seconds. So nobody can follow you through. That means, though, we talked about how many cars can line up. That means you probably can't have people coming in Wooden Trestle Gate or Lavalita Gate after hours. So those gates would probably be resident only. So if my son wants to come to visit, he doesn't have an RFID card, he's got to go through the other gates. This system, because it's a LiftMaster system, the same system we have, would allow us to keep those codes. So we could issue codes for vendors, or we could issue RFID tags. There's a lot of ways we can manage the entrance. The system also includes data logging. So if the RFID tag is registered to you, we would know when you came through the gate and you went out the gate. So we would be able to track authorized folks in and out. If it's a contractor, if it's UPS, whatever, it's going to be logged. If you don't have access, you'd have to pull under the little canopy and punch a button. And there'd be a guy there remotely saying, okay, who are you, where you want to go, let me see some ID, I'll let you in. Costs us $1 every time he does that. So every time somebody wants to come in, it would cost us $1 for that service. Any questions? So, the other thing is, you know, that front gate's really heavy. It takes 10 seconds to open. If you sit there waiting for that gate to open wide enough, 10 seconds. So, we could pass a couple of cars in the time it now takes us to get our gate open. And we would be at risk to replace that arm every time somebody gets it.
Cheaper than the gate.
About $500 a pop though, so it doesn't take very long. You know, if you hit it every week, that's $25,000.
It's still cheaper than the gate.
So this is a summary of the recommendations. So the first phase was really accident prevention and surveillance. We've completed all those measures we need to keep people from running into them. We can do the signs and the pavement markings as soon as we have a solution. And we could add a web-enabled camera system. Now, this is a system of 5 cameras. It's got license plate readers. It's got driver pictures, just like a traffic camera. So we would know who came in and come out. And it would be legal to provide that to the sheriff to demonstrate who came in and came out. Wouldn't catch anybody doing any mischief, but it would put them at the scene. So that would be, would do that. Now, if you've looked at some of the other neighborhoods around here, they've got cast iron gates. They're not as robust as the gates we have, but they open a lot quicker because they're lighter. So that wasn't considered, but that would be an option on some of the gates if you wish. Now, this is what everybody wants to know. Oops. Now, I caution you that I took these numbers out of the Gate Task Force report, which is a year old. So there's probably some escalation. It also may not include all the communications links that we need. So there's another cost to link all these cameras so that it goes into our system here, but that can't be done. So just adding a camera system at all 3 gates is about 30 grand. That's $16 a home. And it costs us about $4,000 a year to operate, software licenses and repairs and all that stuff. So the $30,000 would be capital fund or special assessment to do it now. The next solution, number 4, is a company called INET. They're San Antonio based, and the $112,000 is the top end. I mean, that's the sum of everything. So the camera system is the same camera system. Have to add those rotating arms. Those all have to be coordinated. And then the remote access is that guy that lets people that aren't registered come in. Those are pure estimates. I mean, we don't really know how many people are going to come in and out, how many people are going to punch that button. So you see that would cost us about $58 a home to put it in. It costs us $32 a home to operate it. But $32 a home is every year. And you know it's not going to stay at all. They looked at a couple other systems, or a company called Envera. Their prices were a lot higher. You can get a live guard. It's going to cost you $500,000 a year. So they didn't recommend that. So that is essentially what the Gate Task Force reported. Are there any questions? If you want to make a question, please come up here because we're videotaping and we need to have people speak. Line up over here, guys.
Good evening, my name is Richard Mork. And my first question is regarding the camera system, identifying the vehicles and so forth that come in. Will they also be notified of damage caused by that vehicle?
If we have it on tape. But if a vehicle comes in and it goes somewhere else and has damage, we don't have tape of it. We only have tape at the gate.
Okay. The second one is, will this gate come down fast enough after the first car goes in to possibly damage the second one trying to get in without a code?
Probably, because it cycles in 3 seconds.
It's good for me.
Cycles in 3 seconds.
Good question.
Hi, I'm Mike Benedict. My only concern now is on the, all the build out will probably be over soon.
Yes.
So that we have to relook at how many cars and stuff are coming in. Because I think they probably come in a lot more than all of us. So that's just a hint. We make sure of that.
Yeah, we would engage somebody that does this all the time, and we would ask them to do a study to kind of size the system. Because if we have a lot more traffic than we estimated, we may need a more robust system, more storage space. So we would get some expert advice on this.
Just looking at the gates, the one at the main entrance seems to be a real heavy gate. The other two seem to be lighter gates. Now, is there a way to make the front gate lighter and to maybe cut it down to a one-lane entrance so that it would operate faster and you would be less likely to tailgate? Mike Mauser. And the thing is, y'all probably have the data that shows how much it takes to repair the front gate versus how much it takes to repair the other two gates. And if there's something to be learned there, maybe it would tell you that the front gate needs to be made more like the other two gates. And the other deal is, at the plant I used to work at, we had these things that came down real fast. And sometimes they would come down on the cars, and it always damaged the arm and it damaged the cars. And now when the cars get damaged, they're going to get a lawyer and sue us. And so some lawyer needs to look at this, because lawyers tend to pay money for settlements, and we're on the hook. And as a HOA, you're not likely to get the same justice in our court system. You get what I'm saying?
This study did not look at modifying the front gate. It's open, it provides a 24-foot wide opening, where all the others just provide one lane, 12-foot opening. So that's a possibility. We could narrow the gate and they would operate faster.
And you could restrike
Yes.
when you repay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's something that could be done.
My name is Wilfredo Westbrook, and I go by Wilden on the web. We discussed this type of technology for 6 months last year or the year before. Okay, the money involved there that you're putting in there does not secure the area. Okay. Secondly, the money that's being put in here, we still do not have a full gated area. We still have openings in the area. That's why people come in the morning to do skateboarding, because they can come out from their home and go skateboarding down the hill. Okay? This technology is going to cost them. Why not put the cost in finish building the gate? There is no gated technology on any Del Webb that has this type of technology, because it's not cost effective. look at all the dealt with. I did the study as well as they did in the task force. Because I was not invited into task force, I made sure I did my own study against them. Okay? So please, be aware of what you're paying for here. I'm a technology man. I can tell you, that's not gonna save anybody at the house. That's only for the gates. And since we put the signs up, the stop signs, we have not had anybody running into the gates. The gates that was busted were from our own people. Okay? So I suggested I suggested speed bumps, and they denied me. They never put it up there. A speed hump just lets you nudge you to tell you, hey, look, you're coming to a gate. It's cost effective. It's cost effective. You do not have to pay much. But the gates are still going to get hit. Entry points, my friends, we are always going to have problems with people coming in and out because we always give our numbers to everybody. We are our own worst enemy. Okay, we are. So, with that in mind, keep in mind what's going on here. Okay?
Thank you, Ken.
I'm Ken Solomon. I just want to emphasize and compliment whoever decided this past year to put up those little inexpensive things that have really helped for the gates not being broken again. My first 2 years here, it seemed like somebody was hitting a monument or hitting a gate all the time. So I'm all for as inexpensive as possible, and whoever put those together, I'm just complimenting them.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Eric Bachler. I think it's real important to keep the end objective. What are we trying to do? We're trying to lock down the community and lock ourselves in here. It's going to cost a lot of money. And as you pointed out, it ain't going to happen anyways. I personally would like to see not keep pissing money good and bad after each other. Let's just, if the gates aren't going to work, and the opening, the closing, the people are going to run the gates, you put the other ones in, they're still going to hit them. You can videotape it. You can see them hitting it. They're still not going to pay. We are going to get to pay. Just open the gates. Put up a speed bump to slow them down. There's only so much we can do. And if you want to keep throwing good money after bad, it's still not going to end achieving the end result. Remember what we're trying to do. And the reality is, we can't keep people out if they want to make it in.
Is this questions or suggestions?
Is this questions, or can you just provide input?
This is for input. I'll ask, you can ask questions if you want.
No, it's for input, not questions.
Well, we'll ask questions, but we need you to come up here and ask your question.
It's not a question, Jim. I'm asking if I can provide input.
Yes. Yeah. Why not? We're videotaping, so we need you up here.
Hi, my name is Anthony Schiavi. Just over the last number of years, I worked quite a bit with the Boston Globe and the Daily News for over 50 years, involved with security. And I think we need to do a staged approach in order to increase the security concerns. Like, for example, is it possible that we could shut down all the gates except the front gate during the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.? And put cameras on the front gate on both sides so we get an indication of who's coming in and who's going out. Right, we're not gonna find out who damaged anything, but at least for a minimal cost, you're gonna be, and it may be a small inconvenience to some of the residents here that come in after 10 p.m. I don't think there's many. I know I'm But I would recommend that, and then if that fails, then escalate the levels. But to jump into a high-level security doesn't make sense, really. It makes sense to piecemeal it in a limited area And I would recommend that, look at that. Thank you.
Hi, Jane Luke. I've actually got 3 suggestions. The first one concerns the gate location that we have. I'm talking about the main gate, provides would-be wrongdoers perfect spot to do bad. Plenty of cover. Nobody sees them. Placing the gate ahead sign so close to the gate as it is now, even though it's got lights on it and everything, it needs to be up where somebody on the road, on Rough Road or Alamo Ranch Parkway, can see there is a gate ahead. There's nothing there to put people off coming down that road. So that's suggestion number 1. I would like to see, and I've said this many times, to install new inbound and outbound gates way up closer to Alamo Ranch Parkway. 4-5 cars length in from Alamo Ranch Parkway. The gates can easily be seen by people. It would cut down on people wanting to cut through, tailgate, whatever. Do the 2-gate system where you have a quick operation gate, an up arm to let residents through using a RFID or whatever I call it. And on the other side, it would have to be visitors, vendors, etc. I feel that this would give us a lot of peace of mind, and it would deter people from using our roads to cut through. La Villita and wooden trestle gates, I would suggest, should be for resident use only. Now, my last suggestion is to extend or enlarge the current gatehouse to accommodate our management company, CCNC. Their staff could use they could be within that building. That would in turn free up valuable space in this building for the residents to use. You could use the right-hand side gate, again, for residents to get quick access. The left side, again, for vendors and visitors. And there would be somebody in that building to monitor or allow access. I'm not sure what would happen at night. I haven't thought that one out. And again, the La Villita and wooden trestle gates would be for resident-only access and egress. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Chris Clark, and I'm not endorsing any of these options you got, whether it's RFID or closed gates or whatever it is, but I wanted to thank you first of all because for your due diligence. It looks like you guys have done an excellent job in information gathering. I came in here with questions, but they're already addressed on the screen, so that's my point here, just providing a little input. Just to, like I said, I don't endorse one or the other. I have a lot of opinions, but I'm not going to offer them. So, but I'll let you know my thinking here is because I'll just preface it with that I've had over 20 years of law enforcement experience chasing turds around the world. And so I think it's comical when I see these things up here talking about the tape that are on the gates, the red and white and all that reflective stuff. From being in law enforcement, we got all the lights going and flashing in the middle of the night. When you're a DUI or a DWI, that's a focal point. You can't see. Their mental faculties are all effed up. So what they do is focus on those lights and the tape, and boy, here they come. So it's a target. It's not. It's like a guiding light to them. So okay. So having hit that gate, let's just say, okay, what was it, 23,000 or 32? Okay. So, and if there's any legal counsel in here, please step up and correct me. But you know, you say, well, let's just say we don't go with an RFID, but we go with a surveillance camera. So we got a snapshot of you, your car, your license plate. We know everything about you. But if it's a turd and he's coming in here, he's not a homeowner, then we know who you are. Yeah, we do, because we got your license plate and everything else. So we hand that over to the sheriff's department, let them handle it. We don't deal with it. And they say, oh, I'll be darned. That's one of our felons we've been looking for. Whatever the case may be, it's a done deal. Now, fast forward, and what does that do for the community? A lot. Because the turds say, oh my God, Dale Webb's got a surveillance camera system. We're going to Alamo Ranch. We're out of here. It's a deterrent, really can be. So there's a lot of different things that we could look at, and looking just at your data and the cost. I'm a big proponent of surveillance because of what all it offers you in the court, and it'll hold up and be substantial. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else on Gates before I shift topics? I'm going to take up Will's topic, fences.
I'm Steve Hitzfelder. I've only been here for 6 months, actually not quite 6 months. But what problem were we trying to solve? From what I've heard, we do not have that much problem with burglaries and vehicles and so forth. And my own opinion, I live in the trails where there's lots of construction workers, is that a number of those incidents could have been done by some of the construction workers. Not blaming them or anything, but they're there all the time. Every day, somebody's in there doing something to the houses. So I think once our final construction is over next year, we're probably going to have a lot less of these incidents than what we're having now. So I don't think we need, I think the surveillance cameras, for a number of reasons, especially what the last gentleman put up, would be a good idea. We've got surveillance cameras around here for a number of locations, so I don't know what all they are. But adding them to the gates would, and with a nice long record keeping, would be a good thing. We could identify who's been in and out, and if we have some incidents, we could have some way of maybe identifying. I kind of like the way it is now, where you have your code and your remote, because it makes it easy to go in and out. I agree it would be nice if the gates were faster, but we've all got to live with some problems. Thank you.
Get up here. Everybody else take a stand.
Hey, good evening. I'm Tony Hansen, and I work for a technology company. There's just one thing I'd like you to add. I know you've gone through and you've looked at all these companies, but there's a trend in the industry, and the trend is to go from capital expenditures to really leasing. So technology changes so quickly that by the time you get the latest and greatest in and put in and upgraded, that it becomes obsolete. So there are companies out there that do video surveillance, will take pictures, will provide you all the data. They will work with FirstNet, the public safety group. They will provide that connectivity back. You can lease these applications when you don't like them, or if you find it's ineffective, you can turn it back. So that's my 2 cents.
How many still have an AOL account? Okay, last call for
Yeah, it's me again, I'm sorry. Go for it. Jim, I just forgot to mention when I said if there's any legal counsel here, correct me if I'm wrong, but about running into the gate and us having the HOA pay $32,000, we can put a lien on their house and they have to pay for it.
Well,
That's up to the courts.
In the case of the one incident, we had a non-resident hit the gate and his license plate was torn off and his car was inoperable. So he didn't get very far. And he did have insurance. So, yes, well.
Okay, I'm Will Esperanza. We're just going to make one more point. It's called gated community. What is a gated community? There's 3 types of gated community. One is someone being there all the time, 24/7. The next is when there's a security police driving around at certain times. And the other one is just like we have it now. That's all considered gated community. That's all considered gated community. With that said, insurance-wise and house value, we're still considered a gated community. And once again, gated community is the front. We still have not secured our surroundings because we still have fence lines that are not completed.
Anybody else? So thanks, Will, for the lead-in, because next I'm going to talk about fences. And thanks to John McCullough, I figured out we have about 30,000 linear feet of perimeter. And it's about half fenced. Oops. That's not good. How do they, what do I do that? Start
Jim, you have to use laptop, fill out a presentation.
Cassie to save the day.
I can't use my wife's computer because it's all backwards.
Not a presentation.
Yeah, get out of the edit mode.
Presentation.
Oh, okay.
You can always just start from the beginning.
I once did a time presentation in front of a federal customer, and the guy, we were an hour and 20 minutes. We got done, the guy said, "Oh, I didn't plug my laptop." Okay, you've seen this map before, and it's kind of busy, and I want you to walk through it. We have a number of penetrations that we cannot close because they're flood controlled. So the whole east side, excuse me. The whole east side from Desert Palm up here in the reserve, all the way down to where this thing exits under Alamo Parkway is a county-controlled floodway. And we can't put a fence in there without county permission, and it's probably going to have to be out of the 100-year floodplain, which means it's right up against the back fence, and the floodplain actually comes all the way up to the resort and crosses the road. So if we fence the east side, we're going to have to work with the county on that. The Corps' not in this one. Not in this one, just the county. Also, we're under a tree ordinance administered by the city of San Antonio, and if we cut down any tree greater than 5 inches in diameter, we got to ask permission and replace it. So that's a $1,500 tree we're talking about. And we do have a little bit of wildlife here. If we're 100% fenced, we're pretty soon going to be overrun with deer, and there'll probably be a few hogs that didn't get out. But so those are some things to consider. On the south side here along the springs, that's all residential. That's other people's homes. That's essentially gated by their backyards, or fenced by their backyards. Same thing here, the overlook. We got a partial fence here. But down here, there's a fence, a wood fence along the winds, but this is wide open, soon to be developed. So eventually there'll be residential properties behind us. Along the west side, we do have a wooden fence along most of that, but we've got We've got, down here, we've got a basin that has to discharge under a permit. At Triple X, we have a basin, the water has to get off of our property. At the ridge between, there's actually 2 basins that discharge there. So we've got some restrictions we have to work with if we're going to do 100% fence. We do have some places that are opportunity. We're going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about this one down here that's down in the winds. There's a non-operable gate that you can walk on from the neighboring streets.
Yes.
There's a fence across pipeline right away at Lavalita Gate. It's just a regular wooden wire hog fence. There's a big drainage pipe that comes under Alamo Ranch Parkway between the canyons and the Mirage that's there, and we can't close that off. We've got this piece over on the west side and this piece over on the east side. So those are the places I feel that we have opportunity to cut down on some access. I will tell you though, at Desert Palm the other day, I saw one of our residents exiting that. So there are ways to exit. And to
That's right next to a pedestrian gate.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. To try to get to Will's question, I spent a little time and looked through the Texas property code to see if there was a definition in the Texas law of what a gated community is. I only found it one place. And it's Title 11, Public Safety, Subtitle B, Chapter 352, County Fire Protection. It says a gated community means a residential subdivision or housing development with a vehicular or pedestrian gate that contains 2 or more dwellings not under common ownership. It only talks about gates. So a gated community is not a fenced community, according to the law. Now, what these gates do for us is they make all our streets private streets. And Bexar County Sheriff Office and Bexar County Fire both have access because they have codes that get through the gates. So they're not going to do that. Any questions on that? Where we're coming from that? So I'm going to run through these real quick. Lavalita Gate, this is standing outside our property looking in. It's behind the rock wall, so you probably never see it when you go out. And this is how Enterprise Pipeline gets in to maintain. They don't go through our gate. Enterprise has got their own lock on this gate. So when they come in to mow the right of way, that's where they do it. I say Valero. Enterprise Pipeline is a subsidiary of Valero. And that's been here since 1970. So it predates the community by 20, 30 years. It's just a standard hog fence. It's wire, not stops anybody, but it's also on a piece of land that doesn't belong to us. This little piece of ground that you see here is titled to the Alamo HOA. So we'd have to talk to them to put anything on. We could do nothing. I mean, I don't know of anybody that we've got coming in and out of there. It's not high pedestrian traffic. Or we could put up a wood fence or something. You know, we'd have to put in a gate. We'd have to get all these permissions, but that's a possibility of something that could be taken care of. This is the Bar C gate. If you live in the winds, you know about this gate, because apparently during COVID, our neighbors were going in and out of this gate. But you see, this is looking west. That fence, the gate, is in line with the fence, but our property line is 28 feet back here. Because this is an easement for the power line that comes in. That 28 feet by however long the west side is belongs to us. On the other side, it looks like this. 28 feet and, 150 feet down there, you're in one of our drainage basins. So we're excessive. We could close that. I don't know that there's a lot of traffic there. We'd have to provide gates because that's how we've got to get in and maintain it. So Sand Hollow. Anybody here from the Canyons? So again, we're on the other end of the right-of-way. We're on the north end of the right-of-way. There's a compressor station or some gas pipeline apparatus in an enclosure there. We've closed off this side, so from our wall to this is closed. It's got a standard gate on it. But this side, there's a nice little path you can walk around. Or out, in or out.
Bicycles.
Bicycles, skateboards. Now, there is a trespassing sign once you get past those trees. But also back in this corner is a wire fence that belongs to the neighbors behind us. So we could tie in from this enclosure to that enclosure, about 250 feet with just a standard 4-by wire fence with the sign on the fence, and at least close down some of that incidental foot traffic. That would not be very expensive. So this is that drainage I was talking about. This, if you haven't been here very long, our fountain used to be the end of Alamo Ranch. It was extended about 2016. So that's only been there about 6 or 7 years. And when they did that, they put this humongous pipeline there, dumped it on our property because it flows past all your houses. We'd have to go around that because there's when you know where the Persimmon Trail pedestrian gate is, that fence goes about 30 feet back in the woods and stops. And the next fence is the wall, the rock wall. So those, I've walked back there, and I have to be a lot smaller than I am to get through there very quickly. This is very interesting because you see there's a little path here. People use it to go out. This is right on Alamo Ranch. It's right by the Fontenot's house. The Building and Grounds Committee put those 2 rocks in there because we had people in here with their bicycles. We talked about putting cactus around it to slow people down. We did, but we put it on the other side of the rocks, not on this side. But this could be closed with 30 feet dead into the woods, and those woods are just like everybody else, just like the rest of the woods around here. It's not inviting for incidental traffic. So that's about 30 feet. So those are just some initial assessments, or options. So these are my estimates of what that would be. Desert palm we can do for 30 feet at $50 a foot, about $1,500. Under our rules, that's an operational expense. We come out of operations. Sand Holly, about the same thing. Hire a contractor to string wire back into the woods, close that off, put a sign, and slow down some of the traffic. Might cost a little more to close the crash gate. It's not real high risk, but it is a way in. La Bonita Gate would be a little more, because if we put a wood fence there, that's about 100 feet across there. Becomes more expensive. And then Alamo Ranch drainage, I don't know, we're probably about 1,100 or 1,200 feet of fence to get, and we'd have to go cross country through the brush to connect it in. So those are something we haven't fully developed. So to summarize, we have some, and hopefully, I mean, these are the kinds of things that we're going to put on the survey that you'll get a chance to look at and vote on. We can do nothing. I mean, that's an option. It's always an option. Close Sand Holly. Close. Check all above. I mean, you know, you want to do all of them, that's fine, because what this is going to do is going to give the board of directors some sense of what the community wants to do. There's the options on the gates. Again, do nothing. Live with what we have. We could complete the logs and the codes. We could do some of those no-cost things. We could wait, see what happens a year from now when La Velita is closed. And we have 6 months or a year's worth of information that we don't have now, because all we're doing is guessing. Camera system, again, about 30 grand just for the cameras and operations to see who's going in and out. When we talked to the law enforcement protection guy from the Dominion, they collect a lot of data. Now they have their own police force, so they do a lot of stuff, but they know who goes in and who goes out, what time. They got video of everybody. So that's the capability of those systems. You can get the camera, the RFID, the barriers, you get in faster, but it doesn't give you much capability for non-cleared residents, non-cleared vehicles. You still have to have some way to deal with the folks that are trying to get in. And then the final would be the top end. Any questions on that? So the next steps. Linda.
Oh, yeah. My head's spinning right now. Well, as you can see, there's several options out there. But one thing I kind of want to clarify about the survey that's coming out in the first quarter, this is just one component of the amenities that we're going to be looking at. There have been all kinds of things tossed around about additional storage, about a second story here, enclose the veranda. So those are going to be some of the options that you're going to see. I'll go back to the number that I told you. At the end of the year, there's about $194,000 that will be in that capital fund. So that's why we're doing the survey task force to help the board prioritize their 2 to 5 year strategic plan. Any questions?
Just one last thing, in case you haven't read your governing documents. How many have read the governing documents? So, under our current governing documents, the board could implement any of these with a special assessment, a one-time special assessment. However, unless the cost of the new equipment or the new feature is more than 10% of our annual budget of both reserve and operations, the board doesn't have to get a vote. So the systems we're talking about don't rise to that level. So the board may, without a vote, make a special assessment to do what the community wants to do. And that's really what we're doing, is we're trying to give you the information, take your suggestions, we're taking notes, and you get a chance to look at it. This presentation is going to be up, the videotape's going to be up, so these are available to share. And with that, Colleen, you have anything else you want to say?
No, we're good.
So we did it in an hour.
Wow.
Not bad. Good job.